What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. And guys, geez, this sure is becoming an annual thing, isn't it? Kansas City Chiefs star wide receiver Xavier Worthy was just arrested in the state of Texas on what is being called an assault charge. The first report came from Will Kunkel on Twitter. He works for Fox, and he says former Texas star wide receiver and Chiefs wide receiver Xavier Worthy was arrested Friday night in Williamson County, Texas. Charges: criminal charge of assault against a family or household member by impeding their breathing or circulation. So essentially, what most would consider to be, assault by strangulation, right? And I want to start off by saying this. Right now, we are still waiting for the facts. We have zero context to this, but on the surface, this does not look good. Does not look good. And I'm sure the same thought popped into everyone else's heads when they saw the news as well. We're actually doing this again this offseason with another Chiefs wide receiver. We did this last offseason with Rashee Rice after his speed racing incident in Dallas, Texas. Now we're dealing with Xavier Worthy on an assault charge. Now, both are terrible things. You can debate which one is worse. It doesn't really matter. But right now, it's really hard to see Xavier Worthy coming out of this looking very good. But I'll say it one more time. We have no context to this. This could be, a family member that was in his house and they got into a fight, and Xavier Worthy ended up doing some regretful things and started choking the person, or could have just been a fight where he happened to have his hands on their neck and police got called. We don't know. There's a lot of different things that could have happened here, but the Kansas City Chiefs have already put out a statement essentially saying we're gathering information. They're going to handle this the same way that they've typically handled these types of situations. And unfortunately, they're all too familiar with these situations. You go down the list: Tyreek Hill, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy. There's been some other players here and there that have had run-ins with the law with this Chiefs regime. But I also wanted to add a little bit more context to these charges that are being brought upon Xavier Worthy. So Seth Kaiser on Twitter at RealMNChiefsFan, he is an actual lawyer, and he said assault by strangulation is what we call it in Minnesota, kind of what I referenced earlier. It's essentially an aggravating factor that bumps up a domestic assault from a misdemeanor to a felony when you're alleged to have choked or otherwise impeded their breathing in some way. So I'll say it one more time. There's a lot of different things that could have happened here. Again, it could have been a fight in Xavier Worthy's house, with someone that he didn't want there. His hands ended up on their neck, and that's what he's being charged with. We don't know. We don't have a lot of context right now. But it's just not a good look for the Kansas City Chiefs, man. And it's not good for them to be having to deal with this again. Again, this offseason, the Chiefs are dealing with another player getting arrested for something really, really stupid. And you would wish that these Chiefs players maybe stay away from those influences maybe back at home that are pulling them into trouble, because, Xavier Worthy is obviously from Texas. Rashee Rice was from Texas. He's from the Dallas area, went to SMU for college. And, that's where these guys seem to be getting in trouble most of the time, is back in their hometown, in their home area. And sometimes that's not the best thing for these players to be going back to those places where they have a lot of influences around them that could pull them in the wrong direction, hanging out with the wrong crowd. And it's something that I think, going forward, the Kansas City Chiefs really need to hammer on this. Like, I don't know, do anything you need to do. Bring in counselors to the organization that are hired from, the outside to talk to these players about how they're feeling and their emotions, or hire essentially what we would call a babysitter for these guys during the offseason if it seems like they need it, because I don't know what else you do at this point. And that's actually not something that hasn't been done before. The New England Patriots actually did that with Josh Gordon when he played for them. They basically hired a full-time babysitter for Josh Gordon to make sure he wasn't getting into drugs, getting into illegal activities. So who knows? We may be at that point for the Kansas City Chiefs. But what does this mean for the offseason going forward? Well, I think it means that you got to put receiver, you got to slide that up the board a little bit on the list of needs, because you don't know if you're going to have Xavier Worthy. And guys, right now, well, I've been under the impression that the Chiefs needed to add a wide receiver this offseason, maybe multiple wide receivers in free agency. But this all but solidifies that, because the only receivers that you had under contract going into next year that actually mattered were Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. You may have none of those guys at the beginning of the season. I mean, I would, at bare minimum, probably expect some sort of suspension for Xavier Worthy this year. I mean, he's probably going to get put on the commissioner's exempt list, I would imagine. And if that happens, you're not going to have him at the start of the season. Rashee Rice, we're already anticipating on him missing time, at the beginning of the season, whether it's due to injury or suspension. What else do you have? Like, guys, I've been saying this already, that the Chiefs needed a wide receiver. This just solidifies it. I mean, this just makes it even more that they need a wide receiver. Because if you don't have Worthy or Rice, who do you have? Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, he's a free agent as well, but what are you going to do? Bring him back, and it's him and Justin Watson while Patrick Mahomes, runs around with no one open? Are we going to do this thing where Travis Kelce at 35 years old is once again the number one option in the offense because the Kansas City Chiefs can't stay out of goddamn trouble in the offseason? Is that what we're going to do? I mean, if I was the Chiefs, I'd be attacking wide receiver this offseason. I'd be throwing numbers at the position. I'd bring back Hollywood Brown. I'd be calling the Seahawks about DK Metcalf. I don't think that's an overreaction, because what if you don't have these guys? And what if Xavier Worthy, this whole thing turns out to be even worse than we thought? What if it ends up being that it was a girlfriend or a woman that he, was choking in an assault? I mean, I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but if that ends up coming out later, I mean, you can say goodbye to Xavier Worthy. He's not sticking around in the organization if that's what happened here. Again, we'll see. Right now, everything is just alleged. But, man, the Kansas City Chiefs, they've got to start doing their homework on these guys. And I'm not saying that they don't already. They obviously do some sort of background check for each and every player that they consider bringing in, especially, in the NFL draft. But with Rashee Rice, there was character concerns. They looked past those to bring him in. It ended up biting them in the butt. Xavier Worthy, I'm not sure if there was character concerns. I honestly don't remember. Don't remember hearing anything about that. But, man, the Kansas City Chiefs need to spend 1,000 hours on each guy, making sure that this is someone that they want to bring into their organization, that they're not capable of doing something like this, because this is quite honestly getting ridiculous. It is getting ridiculous how often this is happening in the Kansas City Chiefs organization. And I really just think, when it comes to the offseason vetting process, maybe the Chiefs need to be doing a little bit more, just a little bit more, to make sure that they're bringing in a guy that represents them well, on top of being a good football player, because you just can't have this happening every year. You just can't. And you can't have a situation every year where you don't even know if the guy's going to be available going into next season, because that just makes it to where, the Chiefs basically got to rebuild the wide receiver room this offseason. They have to. If I were the Kansas City Chiefs, I would operate this offseason like you have nothing in the wide receiver room. You don't have Worthy. You don't have Rice. Hollywood's a free agent. Hopkins is a free agent. The Chiefs, they might need to sign 2-3 wide receivers and then draft one. I think that's where we're at. And some people may say, oh, Josh, you're overreacting. That's overkill. But, what are you going to do? We saw this offense and how bad they were this year. We saw how they got destroyed in the Super Bowl. Most of it was offensive line, but they also didn't have a wide receiver that made a difference in the Super Bowl. And I think a lot of us are tired of watching the check down offense that, can barely score 30 points a game. The Chiefs' objective this offseason, we all agreed, was they need to get more explosive on offense. Well, this certainly is not a way to do it. The Chiefs only seem to be explosive on offense off the field, unfortunately. So, I don't know, guys. I think, this just makes the offseason even more difficult. And this was already going to be a monumental offseason for Brett Veach and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now we'll see what happens. But on the surface, this doesn't look good. You never want to have this happen. And I do want to say, hopefully all involved are okay, because we haven't really gotten an update on that yet. And hopefully this is not as bad as it looks for Xavier Worthy. But right now it does not look very good. So those are my thoughts on the currently developing situation on Chiefs wide receiver Xavier Worthy. being arrested on an assault charge in Texas. Let me know down in the comments below what your guys' thoughts are on this and what you think the Kansas City Chiefs plan should now be this offseason with this kind of hanging in the balance. Definitely want to hear it from you guys. But with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. Turn on that notification bell for more news. I'm sure this is going to be something that we're following in the coming days, coming weeks. Make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com, arrowheadaddict.com for more. Follow me on Twitter at showmefb. That's all I got for you guys in this one. I'll see you all in the next one. And as always, go Chiefs.